Resident Alien, episode 13 of the second season. We are in a weird position with this show, and I say that in like the best way possible. What I mean by that is like we are now more than halfway done the season, right? We've officially like passed that threshold of the return, and you get a sense of where we're going, but we're still at that point in the show where we have to fill out some time. And that to me is a really either compelling time where we could be like exploring new stories and doing something fun, or we could be stalling. This episode really feels like a stall to me. If we get some emotional beats done this episode, we don't have to worry about them later on in the show. And that is what it feels like we were doing for most of this episode. This is kind of Harry's story to the sideline. We were really focusing on Asta and Darcy in this episode, and I don't have a problem with that. Both of those characters are important and they are cool. Both those actresses are amazing and fun. I think there's just a lot of forced narrative reasons to make things go, and I don't love it. I kind of want to start off with this. It's something that I'm not going to hold against the narrative. It's just something I've noticed is there's a lot of retreading of stories in this episode and other stuff. So the side plots are kind of like Ben and Kate don't agree on the resort. Let's do that for a bit. The prices are outrageous. Well, he still wants to do it. That's an interesting place to explore. Not much comes from that. Liv and Mike kind of like, you shouldn't go to DC. Even your dad doesn't want you to go to DC. You can't admit you're happy here. Kind of a little bit of retreading. That one, it kind of explores new ground, but the thing is it's not presented enough to show like Mike actually being happy here. He has been a guy we have seen miserable for the most of the first part of this season and kind of just like the comedic sheriff for the first season. So if we can explore that more, then yeah, I'll be okay with that. But it's like you've always been happy. I don't think we have seen that. Because like the first part of the season, he is miserable and angry at the world because his, the anniversary of his friend's death is coming up. And that's kind of like where he was. So we've never really seen him happy, if that makes sense. So I don't think that was a really like earned expression of where he's coming from. But the Asta stuff, again, I don't hate this. I just think it's because if you're like me and you watch enough of these things, whatever kind of TV show you watch, whether it's just genre or drama or anything, there's always the story of like the abandoned child. It gave me vibes of the scene in Shazam where Asta meets her mother and Billy meets his mom, and she's just like, I lost you. I had to move on. Did you want anything? And we see that Asta's mother's just like, I could care less about you. I'm doing my own shit. I couldn't raise a daughter. I'm over it. And I think there is a lot of emotional beats for her to get there, but part of the story just has me like, okay, I've seen this before. Now the thing doing this story is it necessary, I guess, is what I should be asking. I don't know if it is necessary for Asta's character. We have seen her, because like the stuff with her abandoning Jay is like already her dealing with the trauma of her mother. And it feels like we're just like echoing that narrative by booming it in a different direction where she's isolated herself from her daughter and now she's isolated from her mother. It doesn't feel like we're gaining any new traction there. It's kind of just stalling her character in this state of, I'm unhappy, I'm not getting anywhere else. And I don't really think that's particular. It is nice to see Harry trying to help her out of that funk and actually be a good person. It just really felt like, this felt like we had to fill more time in here and we can't do too much of Harry. I don't know. It was okay. And it's another thing I'm very worried about with like the Darcy stuff. You kind of get an emotional roller coaster with her in this one. She's with Elliot at the beginning, and they kind of have a little tiff, and she's just going back to her roots of kind of being too in control, just like demanding, and she's just like, don't parent me, man. Don't push me down this path. And she's going to this big like tournament and doing the tryouts and stuff, and it does a couple things. One, we're obviously going to have like the reconnection where Elliot shows back up and they have their time together, and it's a sweet moment. It's earned because this show doesn't typically like bend itself to the romantic genre, so when it tries to go that way, sure, I'm all for it. I think Darcy's a great character, and Elliot's a great foil for her because someone who's like willing to put up with her. That's kind of interesting. The thing about that I didn't like And this is just a big thing. Again, if you watch as much genre television, dramatic television as I do, you notice the tropes right away. And that kind of becomes this problem where it's like, oh yeah, we know where this storyline is going, where she used up all her painkillers. She took all her medicine a little too early. And now Darcy might need it to still compete. Maybe a little bit of the boost, a shot in her knee to get her the endorphins she needs to keep going. And I know where that story's going, and it kind of is like, do we really need to retread this ground? I don't know if we do, but we are. We're going to retread it. It could be a complete curveball, and she's fine, but I doubt it. We're going to have, I can't compete this, Harry. You got to pump me up with the stuff. And there's some good, verbal dialogue between Harry and Darcy in that scene where it's like, you'd be great on the battlefield. You look like a biter. And she's like, oh, I pull hair. That's some good verbal combat. I liked seeing that. But then it's just like, we're still injecting her with the drugs to get here. She's eventually going to learn her lesson the hard way again. It's tragic to see that because the entire time you're watching her compete, you're just you're waiting for the ball to drop and she's going to hurt herself or not be able to do this. I wonder if they're going to go the route of she's going to actually win the tournament. It's because of these things that she's injecting into her body. I'm not saying they're steroids, it's just these kind of pain killers to help numb the pain. Maybe she's going to feel like she didn't earn that win because of what she was doing to her body, and that could be a route to explore. Because I don't want it to be everybody just suddenly turns against her because she's doing those things. That is the problem. It's when they brought in time travel last episode, I'm like, you are jumping the shark here. How are you going to be able to make this work? And now when you were doing essentially the drug abuse and substance abuse episode, you have to make that work in a way that doesn't seem like you're pandering to your audience. Drugs are bad. No, don't do them. And a natural progression of a character could move away from this or be trapped on it. It's risky territory to make it look too, preachy or not preachy enough. And I hope they find the right balance. Immediately, I'm like, oh, Darcy, this is not a good look for you, hun. You're doing great. You have a good guy. This could be the thing that ruins it for you. I hope that's not the case. But again, it's episode 13 out of 16. I'm not looking for substance right now, if that makes sense. You gotta have to do some filler. So if we do a side story where Asta meets her mom, okay. If we do a story where Darcy competes, okay. Because there's a little bit of meat to this episode, I guess, in terms of the actual science fiction narrative. Potentially 2 alien species that could be on Earth. There's the Greys, which Harry disproves is well, what would they want with humans? They have nothing to really do with us, so whatever. Then he's like, it's probably the Alpha Draconians, which are these lizard people who would probably just eat humans and destroy the world. His big idea is, well, we're passing this cornfield. I'm going to put an alien emoji in there telling them to fuck off. And that's what he does. But surprise, surprise. Guess what, everybody? It wasn't the Alpha Draconians. It was the Greys. So little gray Martian with pretty simplistic VFX. And I get it. You can't really do that. And then the actual alien suit you do for a Harry, you have to make them look distinctively different. So a little CG gray man is okay. Voiced by George Takei. And I know what you're thinking. We've already spent enough time on Asta and Darcy. Do we have time to do a bit where George Takei says, oh my, a few times? We spend 30 seconds on it. And I'm not complaining. It's a funny bit, I guess. But I'm just sitting here I guess I know George Takei's in on the joke, but is the audience now that I say it, I was going to think slow down, son, retrace your steps. Okay. I was going to think is the audience watching this show familiar with George Takei's work? And I'm if they're watching this, they know Alan Tudyk and Linda Hamilton. They know who George Takei is. So I guess doing the joke works. So the Greys, the little Martian people that probe you in your, what do you say, eliminator hole or something, they are coming for Earth for something. Whatever that is, we don't know yet, but it's happening. It's happening. They're coming to Earth. They're going to do something weird. And they can freeze time, apparently. So we are doing a drug abuse episode. We did a time travel one, and now we're freezing time. A lot of heavy concepts here. I hope they can make it work. Again, I am a supporter of this show. They got another season. I am going to watch it because I think there's something genuinely creative about genre fiction in this format. This episode just felt a little too high and mighty, where it's like, okay, here you go. And it sucks to say that because your two female leads are getting this chance to do this, but it's this thing I've been trying to like confront in these videos. It's like, you are kind of repeating some of the stories until you eventually have to do it. So like the Kate and Ben stuff, we're kind of repeating. The Asta stuff, we're kind of repeating. The Darcy stuff, we're not repeating. But it's so troped up at this point that you can feel the beats coming. It sucks that the two female leads can't have like a really creative jaunt, if that makes sense. Like go in a direction we're not expecting. They are playing out familial territory. But I do like the chemistry between the two actors. They have fun together. They're smiling together. Every time Asta is celebrating Darcy, you are just like, these are two friends that care about each other and support each other. So that makes up for like the simplistic stories they go for. Hopefully the last three find their footing a little bit more. I don't know if this was my favorite episode, but it's far from the worst. Kind of an interesting mix. So that is going to do it for this episode of Resident Alien Reviews. Weird way to put it, but that's what I'm doing. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Oh my. Was that good? That was fine.